Hello, statistical scholars, and welcome to another adventure with Minitab. So, what we're going to do today is I'm going to take you through everything you need to be able to do anything in Chapter 2. So, I'm going to show you how to make a frequency table, a bar chart, a pie chart, a relative frequency pie chart with multiple clusters to it, and then go through how to make a two-way contingency table. So the first thing I'm going to show you is how to make a relatively frequency table. So if you look at my data down here, I've got not a very big data set, but it's enough. And I've got two categorical variables in here. Remember, chapter 2 is all focused on categorical variables. So I've got level education and then smoking status. Those are my two that I'm going to use. Now, there are a few on here you could probably use as categorical, but I'm not going to. So since I'm making a table, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the stat menu, and there's this option in here called table. This is the one you're going to use anytime you want to make a table. And I'm going to go to tally individual variables. Now, I'm going to start this off by using level of education. So if you notice down here in display options, you have counts, percentages, cumulative counts, and cumulative percents. Since when we do frequency tables, we usually do percents as a comparison to the total, that's the one that I want to include. I'm going to include counts too, just for fun. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And there is my table. So if I was doing this for a Minitab assignment, what I would do now is I would select all of this and then copy it and then go paste it in my answer document. Alrighty. Now, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make a bar chart of this. So in graph, you'll notice that there's lots of different plots, graphs, and charts in here. And in case you forget their name, there's also little itty bitty pictures of what they all look like in case you have forgotten what you're looking for. So we're going to make a bar chart. So I'm just going to make a simple bar chart this time. We're going to do a more complicated one after we learn how to make a pie chart. And notice in here there's lots of options. I'm always going to stick with the counts of unique values. There will be options where you might want to use values from a table if you have table values instead, or a function that you're interested in doing bar charts for. But that's the one that I want. Ooh, okay. And so just like before, I'm going to choose level of education. And then I'm going to select some different options to make this a little more interesting. So I'm going to go into label, and this is a place where you can give your chart a title. That's a good idea if you're trying to use your chart to represent something in some sort of report that you're doing, or if you need to use it for a PowerPoint slide. That way it's a little more detailed on what the chart is meant to represent or is about. I'm going to go over to data labels and go ahead and choose Y frequency labels, because otherwise it will not label all my values individually, and it's kind of nice to see that, I think. We're going to go ahead and click OK. There are other options in here too that I'm going to ignore for now and hit OK. Woohoo! So that box I checked was made so that it would put my counts at the top here so that I would know what each of these values are. However, if you leave your little mouse hovering over that bar, it will also tell you the count value for that bar in case you forget to click those labels. Alrighty. Now let's see a pie chart. So once again, I'm going to go over to graph and I'm going to choose pie chart. And then again, I'm still doing counts for unique variables. If you ever get worried that, oh my gosh, I can't click on the stuff over here, it's because you haven't selected a place where the variables get used. So if I go so if your left box ever shows up blank, it's because you haven't selected a place where you can put in a variable. So I'm going to select this little white box for my categorical variables and choose level of education again. Oh my gosh, excuse me. And then I'm going to go in to click labels. Now, pie charts are notoriously bad about this. So there's lots of options here. I'm actually going to choose all of them, because if you don't do this, you don't get a whole lot of information from the pie chart. So the other thing is, if you end up with a pie chart that has a lot of categories in it, you might want the draw line to slice option so that it's clear which slice goes with which category. Otherwise, it's a little confusing to read. The other thing you might want to take a look at is your pie options. So starting angle 90%, this is just saying that the first slice they're going to start at is at the very, very top at the 90% mark. And then combined slices, this is if you want to create an other category to make up for the fudginess around it. Or combine values or categories that have like not a lot in them down into one. Now we're going to go ahead and click OK. Bloop. Now, as you look at this pie chart, if you didn't select all those little boxes I did under the labels menu, or slice labels rather, you wouldn't have this here with a little line to it, so the count and then the percent along with the wording. You would just have this colorful circle and this coding for it, which is kind of uninformative if you're wanting to know the percentages, because different people might guess different things. Like you might guess this is like 9% instead of 7.5. And if you forget to do that, you can hover over just like with the bar chart and get that percentage that way. Now notice it only gives you the percentage, not the count, which is a little bit different from the bar chart. All right, we're done with our pie chart. Now let's go ahead and do a more complicated bar chart. So I'm going to do a relative frequency bar chart of level of education separated by smoking status. So I'm going to do this cluster, not the stack, the cluster. You could do a stack for this as well. I'm going to click OK. And so I'm putting in first level of education and then smoking status. Whatever you put in last for your bar chart is going to be the one that it separates by, so the one it clusters by. And then under chart options, I'm going to choose some different options. I'm going to shows Y as a percentage. And then percentage across categories. Then I'm going to click OK. And then that's about all I'm going to do. Oh, and I do want to do my labeling because I like the labeling. I think the labeling makes it clear what's going on and how tall your boxes are in your bar chart and your pie chart, because otherwise it's a little unclear just by looking at it where exactly your values might be. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. So a couple things worth noticing about this chart. Notice it says percentage for your Y vertical axis, and that's because these numbers up here, although it doesn't have the percent sign, are percentages because I did it by percent and not count. And you should be highly suspicious that these are not individual counts, because you can't have 12.5 people. This must clearly be a percent, or because the Y axis is labeled as percent. And here, if you hover over, it doesn't give you the value as counts. It gives you as percentages. So just some things to watch out for with that. But, relative percentage is usually something that's used a little bit more when it comes to doing comparisons like profit and all that. Oh, no, I don't want to say that. The other thing about your graphs is that if you want, you can literally copy the entire graph. Copy graph to go paste it into your Word document for your homework assignment on Minitab. Oh, that was the wrong button. Ah! Oh, and I forgot how to do this. Okay, hold on. Window, there it is. Sorry, back to my session window. And I would like, oh no, I have really screwed up how this is using. Close all graphs. No. All right, whatever. This is good enough. I forget how to make it cascade. Oh, cascade. I'm smart. It's fine. Well, now you know what to do if that ever happens to you. Yay! Anyway, so next I'm going to make a two-way contingency table of level of education by smoking status. Anytime you want to make a table, that's going to be found under the stat table menu. So we use tally individual next, and then I'm going to use cross tabulation and chi-squared. I'm actually going to use the chi-squared this time. I'm just going to create the table. So the cross tabulation is the one you want. And I'm doing raw data. My rows that I'm going to choose is going to be education status, and then I'm going to choose smoking status as my columns. I'm not going to add any layers or frequencies. I'm not going to do any percentages. I'm just going to do a flat table so we can take a look at this and talk about what it looks like. And make sure that you have something chosen as display here. Otherwise, this is the most boring table you're ever going to look at because it has nothing in it. We're going to hit OK. And notice you get this lovely table. So if you notice going down the rows, there's this all row, and going across the column, this is the all column. That represents the total columns that we were talking about in the PowerPoint. So in particular, if you read it just down the columns, that would give you the marginal distribution for the smoking status, and if you read across the rows, that would give you the marginal distribution for the high school level of graduation. Alrighty, and that's how you make a contingency table or two-way table for two categorical variables. Yay! So if you're wondering about that chi-squared bit, we are going to do something called a chi-squared test later when we talk more about dealing with categorical data and doing tests. So things to look forward to. That's all we have for today. Woohoo!